Hey, what's up? It's me, Gazbot. I've got fluffy hair and I need to shave. This is the Horror Production Report, update number 17. I'm continuing from where I left off with my 100 days of making comics, working on my own comic project, which is titled The Horror A4. It's a future post-apocalyptic. It's in a world where there were giant kaiju monsters, Godzilla-type monsters, and giant heroes that fought them, but it's now 100 or so years after that, when everything's rebuilt and seemingly fine. But what's this? One monster has arisen. Is it a survivor from a lost time? Is it a new monster starting the cycle again? All we know for sure is that it's called the Horror A4. Well, Q's going out for dinner, which means I'm going to have a late lunch and not have much for dinner later. But I am a champ, because for lunch I'm going to have a can of refried beans and most of this bag of potato chips. Like a champ. And we're back! So, this is going to be recapping the last 12 days. I'm back to my almost 2-week schedule. It's going to be a chaotic one. I'm kind of pressed for time with work and videos and all this stuff, so I kept putting it off, and rather than trying to put it off and get it perfect, I'm just going to put it out, which is a recurring theme in art and comics. Just get it done, because perfect is the enemy of good! Haha! So I'm going to bookend it like I normally do, but in between there's going to be a bunch of video I took on the day of. Some of it pretty poor quality, I apologize in advance. The major thing I had going on this period is I did Wizard World San Jose, which was a 3-day show, which I talk about in the later video, so I'll leave it to that. But I'm going to do a quick recap going through for anything that I missed in those videos, and then I'll speak with you again in this format at the end of the video. As I said, it was 12 days, and the first day was Monday. Before we go any further, actually I forgot, I wanted to congratulate Mike Emirates. Mike Emirates, 100 days, alum, the newest hero, and lo, he has come to us with Space Cat. Well, not quite yet, but he's well on his way, and he's completed the 100 days, so congrats to Mike Emirates! But yeah, good stuff, check out his videos if you haven't, and all of the hundreds, why not? So, a couple things, just general arty things that have been going through my mind this week and a half. I've been kind of all over the place. I've been up and down, and I'll probably contradict myself in a few videos and just take it all with a grain of salt, because I've been feeling positive, been feeling negative, been productive, been not productive. But one of the things that I've been struggling with specifically recently is the whole idea of slowing down to speed up, which is how I've heard it. Another way of saying it, actually, speaking of Mike Emirates, he had a quote, which I didn't write down like a fool. Apparently it was a Navy SEAL quote, and now I'm going to misquote his Navy SEAL quote. But it's something along the lines of, fast is sloppy, whereas deliberate is expedient, or something like that. Basically saying if you're fast, you're going to mess up. But if you take your time, not necessarily go slow, you'll end up getting there quicker and more correctly because you know, you took your time and you did it deliberately, and it's sort of like measure twice, cut once, you know, slow down to speed up, all that stuff. I've been trying to take that to heart to a certain extent. And where it's come in the most is when I'm taking my rough layouts and bringing them to finished inks. Some of the rough layouts are more finished than others, and what I've been doing is having a tendency to just like, well, I'm just going to ink it, and then I revise the ink 15 times and I edit the ink, and instead I've been taking, if something looked not quite right or wasn't 100% sure of a line, I've taken the time to do a tighter rough or a rough pencil, as it were, not as you were, you're not a rough pencil, well maybe you are and I don't discriminate, welcome my graphite friend. But anyway, I've been trying to take that pause and pause for a moment and figure it out and redraw it and get, you know, the anatomy right, or get the, whatever the thing is that was a little bit questionable in the rough before I go on to inks, and with mixed success. Sometimes I end up redrawing that 50 times anyway, but a few times it's helped me out, and I think it's something I need to work on, and I think it's helpful for most people, but especially for me. Also, I've picked up some client work. Despite putting a moratorium on large projects for myself, I've been picking up a lot of small projects, which is good because it's money, and I like doing a bunch of little small projects. It makes me feel very accomplished. It's like I did like 4 things this week, you know, for all different clients. But it does cut into the, you know, the work on the horror, and I'm not gonna have that power week like I did last time where I was doing 8 hours a day, which isn't to say I didn't get work done. So I had some new corporate characters. I had 2 different clients give me corporate characters, both returning clients. One is sort of just face, generic body, and the other is like, oh, they like to water ski with a motorcycle and a dog, and so the phrases reflect accordingly. So I had those 2 clients, both of which I finished this period, not a week. I had to take my cat to the vet and a few other things. But Monday I did 3 hours on the horror, inking page 10. So then Tuesday, I spent almost 4 hours on the horror, inking page 10. I had to deal with some other stuff, worked on another client work. Wednesday, I did some house cleaning. I had to work on some kid switch pages. The other book I'm working on that I did not write, I'm just the artist, but it's had this really long, whenever I get around to it, kind of deadline that's starting to actually ramp up a little bit, which is fine because we're more than halfway through the book. But anyway, I needed to finish up the inks on these pages and the color, actually, by the end of this period that we're talking about now. So I worked on the inks for that, another corporate caricature, did not work on the horror at all Wednesday. Thursday, I worked on some the corporate caricature stuff, and then around 3:30 I stopped because Wizard World Comic-Con started at Friday. Started Friday. So I kind of had to get my stuff together. I thought I might make some new prints, but I didn't. Not new art, but like, you know, reprinting stuff I already had done. And I'm just gonna pause real quick here. I know I keep talking. I'm going to talk about prints. I'm not going to talk about prints in any of these updates. I will hopefully one day make just a little side video about prints, but I'm doing that thing which you know, I shouldn't do, which people say you shouldn't do, talk about things I'm going to do, because I keep getting sidetracked and busy, and it's not a matter of I don't want to do it, it's not a matter of I don't have thoughts on it, but I don't have time to do it right, and I keep saying, oh, next week. I'm going to say maybe never. I'm going to say never, and then if it shows up, you'll be happy, but just forget about the print thing that I keep mentioning. Similar with my San Diego Comic-Con video, which is now months old. Both of those are sort of on my to-do list, but the priority is way low. These updates are more important, working on my book is more important, client work is more important, hanging out with my friends is more important, you know. Those things are things I want to do, but they're not going to be prioritized. So just pretend I never said I was going to do them, and if I do, great. Moving on! It's Thursday in the early evening. There's an actual like nature park across the street from my house. It's not gigantic, but you can walk around in it for an hour and not repeat yourself. It's not like that little park you normally walk around in. You don't want to walk here at night. There's no lights, and I have a feeling homeless people sleep here, or at least kids smoking pot. Regardless, I'm not gonna. I previous to this has given you the update of where I am up to today now, and I'm going to Wizard World tomorrow, and I'm not excited at all, and I get this way a lot before shows. It's the same way I feel about when I'm going to a concert to see music or like a party. Like, I always am like, yeah, I'm gonna do it like months ahead of time, and then like right before it's time, I'm like, I don't want to go. I just am not interested. I'd rather stay home, and that's how I feel right now. I'm sure I'll feel better once I go and, you know, have some fun, make some sales, maybe buy something while I'm there. But what's funny is that well, not funny, but what's adding to it is that I thought it was Saturday and Sunday like most cons, but it actually starts Friday at, I think, 3. So tomorrow I'm going to spend the day loading in, and like I'm building a new sort of setup that I haven't really done before. I mean, it's similar to my old setup, but sorry about the sun, by the way, but I'm going to need the extra time. So maybe that's part of also why I'm not super excited. Also, I'm way more tied up in my book, the Horror A4, which is good, except that it's not done. And I didn't think I'd have it done for this one, so it's not like Ape where I'm going to be disappointed, because I won't have Rape, by the way. It's another story. But I'm just not, you know, the whole print thing, I'd rather it be a side thing, whereas, once again, it'll be the primary reason I'm going. The one thing I'm happy about is I have a book I bring with comic book sample pages that could be used either just to show people what I could do, or if there's an editor there to try to get work, or, you know, whatever. But usually it's got a mix of a bunch of different stuff, but I was like updating it and getting it ready, and it had, the entire book is filled with Kid Switch and the horror, and that's it. Which is kind of cool, because it's like, okay, this whole book is the representative of the 2 books I'm working on, the 2 things I care most about right now, and it's all comic work, you know. It was good. That was like kind of brightened my day up a little bit while I was packing for a show I'm not feeling particularly excited to go to. I should stop filming here because the lighting is crazy, as you can see by my model face, but I'm sure the next thing you see will be Wizard World San Jose related. I went to the wrong hall. It was empty. I was panicking, but I just had to go down this back secret corridor to the real hall.
Well, looky here. It's me with my snazzy new setup. It's a wall behind me. Cubits on the side as well. Ho-ho!
Still pretty empty. It only officially opened 5 minutes ago. It's always interesting. And this whole row on the right is celebrities, and this whole row on the left is Artist Alley, which is where I am. It's interesting. I can't tell if this is going to help me or hurt me in terms of traffic and sales. Back there you can see where it looks more like a regular Comic-Con with merchandise and things like that.
There was a cool family that was all from Resident Evil cosplaying, and there was a yellow and Space Ranger, which I had not seen, which was pretty cool, and a Mikey that kind of looked like the old 90s figure. There was a lot of good cosplay. Rainbow Bright, which was kind of random, and this is a Cloud City guy from the background, super obscure Star Wars thing. This is the exact view I had. It was 3 Walking Dead people and Ted Raimi across from me. Yeah!
Day 2 going better than day 1. It's about 1 o'clock. I've already made more than I made all day yesterday. Let's see what else happens. It is 5:30 on Saturday. Things are slowing down. As you can see, a lot of the celebrities have gone home. And traffic, while better today in general, has dwindled quite a bit. And yet we have close to 2 hours left, so we'll see what
Didn't
happens.
do a lot of commissions this show, but here's one of them. It was Ultraman head sketch, which was fun. Always a little difficult to get him straight on, though. They had a Coke Zero booth there, and the whole thing they did was give away free Coke Zero, which seemed oddly out of place, but I drank a lot of free Coke Zero. And if you look here, our listing for Gazbot and Qubits, because I happen to type it in all caps, really stands out in the book. So there you go. That's the equivalent of getting AAA auto towing. All caps Gazbot.
This is cool. Wizard World, I'm still not 100% sure if I dig it or not, but I do like their organization. They set this up, this little 2 feet that nobody could be in, and this is like the corridor between one side and the other where I'm kind of could walk and get to where I need to be, like some kind of special man. Oh look, I'm back at my table. Sorry for the poor quality walking at night type video, but in the interest of keeping my workload low and just, well, whatever. It's the end of day 2 for Wizard World San Jose. It is a 3-day con, as I mentioned, so it's Saturday night. The table was more expensive than, wow, I don't know if you can hear that, but there's fireworks going on. The table was more expensive than other cons I've done at the same convention center, but it is a 3-day con, although yesterday I made $35. I also do have to consider that I split the table with Q, so it's not like the whole table cost is mine, part of it's hers, and she made a little bit of money too. So what I'm getting at is I was not looking forward to this con, and I am feeling, wow, that light, I apologize. I am feeling discouraged in general. Yesterday was terrible. Today was better, and we definitely now are over table cost. Between the two of us, we were in the black, as it were. We've covered table cost. Also, I'm encouraged by the fact that we found a better parking place, because parking at the convention center is $20 a day. It used to be $13 years ago. Now it's $20 a day. So for a 3-day con, that's $60 right there. Found a parking lot relatively close. It's like a 5-minute walk, if that. It's super close, and it's only $7 a day. So that helps a lot. Also, I had talked previously about cutting costs in terms of buying food and coffee and things at the con. So bringing snacks. A friend of mine brought food for breakfast this morning, so we've cut down on costs that way. And I didn't spend much money either. I bought a couple toys that I would have bought anyway. They were retail, and I could have got them at Target, but they had them there. So I'm not counting that. That's not like an impulse splurge buy. That's something I was going to buy anyway. So why am I feeling so negative? The sales still aren't amazing. Even though going into tomorrow, I know anything we make will be, profit. I don't see us making a ton of money, and I never make a lot of money at these things. Hold on a second. So it's a Wizard World Con, and it's the first brand name Wizard World Con I've ever done. And I always had the impression that they were kind of bigger and better and more well produced. And now this is not to say that it'll necessarily be good for a small artist and artist alley, but just in general. And having done Big Wow and a few other cons, it's actually smaller than those, which really surprised me. And it surprised a lot of other artists, and it surprised a lot of guests I talked to. Now this doesn't mean it was a tiny minuscule thing. It was decent sized, and it had vendors and it had celebrities and all the stuff you'd expect, but it was just, you didn't need to be there for 3 days. I can tell you that. You could do everything in one day. And so the traffic isn't what I expected. There was a lot of times when there was nobody walking by the table, and I always say, if there's 100 people walking by my table and nobody's buying anything, that's on me. But if there's nobody walking by my table, that's on the con. And that's what was happening. It would come in spurts where we'd have a bunch of people and nobody at all, a bunch of people, nobody at all. Also, and this has been a recurring theme when I do conventions, for whatever reason, for whatever reason being probably that I just do what I want and do subject matter that interests me, even if it's, fan art, as it were, and rather than do Guardians of the Galaxy or Deadpool or whatever the hot thing is, I do what interests me, and what I am interested in isn't always the most popular thing. So what happens is I get, 2 hours of not selling anything, and then one person will buy like $50 worth of stuff from my table because I'm like, oh my gosh, Godzilla, you know, something like that. And so that results in a really boring day. And friends I know come by and talk to me, and I chat with the people next to me, and I try to draw, although I have a hard time drawing at conventions. I mean, I do con sketches, like I did this Ultraman head sketch today that I'll put up right here. But it's different when I'm like, okay, I gotta do this for money and real quick do that, than if I'm just like trying to feel inspired. And like I drew a picture of boots that I didn't really like, it kind of looked off model. Like, I'll throw that up here. And that's something I did just to kind of keep myself busy. And, you know, I'm there with Q, but we're both tired, and, you know, we entertain ourselves for a while, and it's nice having company, and, you know, I walked around once or twice, but it's just, I don't know, cons are tough. They shouldn't be. But here's the other thing. So I do, tomorrow's Sunday, maybe things will go a little better, but, you know, best case scenario, I might make $100, $200, $300 this weekend, which if you break it down is not that much. With all the work I'm putting into it, it comes to probably like minimum wage. And I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, like, ideally I'm getting my name out there, and you know, people do start to recognize me and know my work and things like that, but it's not necessarily translating into sales, especially because what I get a lot is like, oh, I saw you at the last show and I bought that print from you of Godzilla, of Ultraman, of Power Rangers, of whatever the thing is. Do you have a new one? And it's like, no, I don't do prints that fast. And also I've kind of diversified where I have somebody, had one wrestling print. So the guy always wants another wrestling print. I did, you know, an Ultraman print. So the guy wants a different Ultraman print. I did a Transform, you know, things like that. So it's almost like I'm punished for diversifying. But even the people that like the prints that I have a lot of in a series, you know, once they get them, that's it. And, you know, it's weird. Like, I'm not building a fan base based on my art, which I've talked about before, and other people have talked before. I'm building a fan base based on the characters and products that I am doing art of. Now, they like my art enough that they want my version of it, fair enough, but it's not like they're like, oh, you don't have a new Ninja Turtle one? Well, let me get, you know, this, you know, Godzilla or Zombie or whatever it is, because they only want Ninja Turtles. So I don't count that as a fan of mine. I count that as a fan of Ninja Turtles, you know, that likes my take on it, and which is more the reason why I need to work on my own creation, like the Horror A4, and then I could do prints or posters or whatever, and then they're buying from me. And then maybe if they like me, they want to see my version of something else, fair enough. I'm going to pause again. So, yeah, again, it's one more reason to have my work done, and, you know, Q's telling me, oh, well, you know, you should try to have one new print for the next show, and she's right, but I'm like, I don't care about the prints. I mean, I need to, even when I have my book out, like, to make table, you have to sell prints or something else, you know, at least in my experience, and people I've talked to, very few people are making table by selling comic books, especially floppies, which is what I'm going to have, meaning a 22-page book. And so, even when I have my book, and I'm promoting that as me, and maybe I'll have a print of the horror or whatever, I'm still going to have some Godzilla, Ninja Turtle, other things, again, that interest me and that I like drawing, to help pay the bills, as it were. But until then, I've lost so much enthusiasm. I'd already lost enthusiasm. You know, before I started the 100 Days of Making Comics, I kind of got sick of doing shows. And I was just doing these prints, and I'd make a couple bucks, but you know, some people say you break even, you know, and there you go. And like Kevin Cross and others are like, I want to make money. And I'm down with that, and I usually do. 9 times out of 10 make money off of, you know, higher than I paid out in materials and table and stuff and parking. But again, $100 maybe for 2 days. $300 for 3 days is like a good weekend for me, quote unquote good. But when you consider that those days are like, I don't know, 8 hours, 10 hours long, and you break that down, that's like $10 an hour less, maybe less than that even. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not growing my product. Nobody's following me on YouTube. Nobody's doing my Patreon. Nobody's becoming a fan of me. They're just buying my prints. And they might remember me next time and go, oh, yeah, you're the guy that had the Green Power Ranger print. Do you have White Ranger this time? Or do you have, you know, X favorite Ranger, X favorite monster, X favorite whatever? Because any series you do one of, everyone is always like, oh, you did a Ninja Turtle? Where's Shredder? Where's Splinter? Where's Kate? You know, they want to have one of everything, which is why you do see a lot of artists that's like, oh, I do Doctor Who. I've done every single Doctor Who character. Every time I come, I have 5 more, and like, more power to them, but I can't, that gets so monotonous for me. I can't do that. And again, I know this camera angle is horrible. I just want to sort of talk about it while it's fresh, and I got a lot to do next week, and I want to be able to do another semi-strong week on the horror, so this is one less thing I'll have to do. But we have one more show. Well, I have tomorrow, obviously, and then I have Ape next month, which I wanted to have my book done by. I will not. Definitely will not. And here's why. Even if I power through and finish all of the artwork and have it done, The places I'm looking into printing, primarily Kablam, although a few others, need over a month to guarantee printing. So I would have to have it done like today. Send it to them to make sure to have it in time for Abe, so it won't happen. What I might do, I think I mentioned this before, is try to get an ash can together, maybe like a 5-page thing or a 10-page thing, just fold it up, you know, photocopy it myself, give it away, or sell it for $1 or something, just to make myself feel a little better that progress is being made. But once the book's done, despite everything I've said about being tired of doing cons, I'm going to do a ton of cons, all the cons I can. Crappy, you know, toy show that's only a 6-hour show that's 2 hours from my house, sure, I'll do it. Because then I have something to promote that will help me in the long run. I'm going to be doing my own book, you know, the Horror A4. I'm going to be doing, you know, me. It's my rating, my story, my character. And I want people to get it and then want issue 2, 3, 4, etc. And at that point, it's less about, am I making money? It's less about how much money per hour am I making? It's less about, is this worth the weekend I'm doing this when I could be doing something else? Because I'm actually promoting it, and I'm actually getting it out there. And then people will go, oh, you're the guy that does the Horror A4. And that's what I want. So I'm going to end right now, not the whole video, but this section. I'll probably have more to talk about tomorrow after Sunday. Maybe I'll be in better spirits. But as of right now, I'm ready to be done with con season. I realize I've been throwing a lot of negativity, or at least apathy, malaise, whatever. I will say there was some cool cosplay. Also, somebody came by, bought. I sold a few prints that were like old ones that I didn't think I was ever going to sell again, that I was getting tired of dragging out. And one of the people that bought one of them, he had his kids there, and they were looking at stuff, and they were literally looking at every print and pin, and what's this? And I talked to them for like 5-10 minutes. I thought it was going to be one of those things where, you know, then they walk away. Wow, the lighting is nuts. But he bought a print, and then I mentioned, he asked, it was a Predator or zombie. And he's like, you know, do you have any more of these? I'm like, no. I said, I used to have an Alien, but I don't carry those prints anymore. Once these are gone, they're done. I said, but I might have the original art. And he's like, really? Bought the original art for the Predator. He bought a color sketch I had done of Optimus Prime and a print. So it ended up being this thing where, like, okay, I thought I was just being a nice guy talking to the kids. And it turned into one of the biggest sales of the day. So that was pretty cool. So once again, be nice to people. Oh my God, this late. I'm so sorry, guys. Be nice to people, regardless if they're spending money or not. Just be nice. I mean, you're there to sell yourself. And, you know, that was a highlight in an otherwise bland day. I don't know why they have a Coke Zero booth here, but I love that there's free Coke Zero.
One odd thing was at Wizard World, they gave us this wristband as opposed to a lanyard, which I'd never seen before. It was just odd. I wanted to take another look at the setup. This was Sunday. The person next to us didn't show up Friday, left halfway through the day Saturday, and didn't come in Sunday. And that has happened to me a lot of times for some reason. So we spread out. She took half of their table. I had a whole table to myself, and we built this whole backdrop, which I talked about before, which I like because there's nothing in front of us. And then in front, I have 2 books full of prints and a book full of original art, and then me sketching and just talking to people with everything behind me, which so far is my favorite setup. Here's some of Q's stuff. She's got the perler beads of Furiosa and Kamen Rider, Silver Surfer. This was another commission I did, a Mazinger Z head. The neck was a little bit too long, but what are you going to do? This was a free kid sketch of Katniss. I had to actually look, Everdeen from Hunger Games, I had to look it up. This was one of my old characters from the 90s, very image. I decided to draw him. I didn't finish it, but it was something I did to entertain myself. Here's another off-model Boots, which I'm thinking about that'll be her outfit when she changes for the day.
Kick! Kamen Rider, Kamen Rider, Rider. Is it rolling? Yeah. It's Morphin' time!
This was our view of where the celebrities had been. Sunday, this was a good hour, maybe 2 hours. They left before the end of the show, rather. They even took down the signs, and it was something really depressing about it. Not just that, oh, well, any traffic they were bringing is gone, but just staring at that instead of other artists or vendors or whatever, and it really discouraged people from coming to that section. So when I talked before about whether it would be a help or hindrance, I believe it was a hindrance to be placed there, and psychologically bleak.
So yeah, that was my Wizard World Comic Con experience. I probably would do another Wizard World if it was local, but it was not a great financial experience, but otherwise it was okay. I want to stop here real quick and mention we have a few people that are doing V100s that are new that I did not mention last time, 2 of which we're not doing it yet, and that is Scotty Clayton and Greg Scott Bradley. They are newcomers. Check them out. Links below. Someone who has been doing it, but I didn't mention last time, at least not in the video, I put it, the links, is Lex Local Bastard, and she's been doing it. I think she's on like 40-something, so you can check her out too. I didn't mention her last time in the video. I apologize for that. Check the links below. And as always, if I am not mentioning you and you need to be mentioned, say something, and I will. Actually, one day during Wizard World, I did work an hour on the horror inking, so I snuck that in there. What I was doing was, actually, I finished the inks on page 10, which, here's page 10.
So this is where we left off at the end of the last update. I had finished 3 panels and 2 were left to go. And you can see in panel 2 there, this is what I was talking about, I redrew boots as sort of a tight rough or loose pencil, and then the inks were a lot closer to that and came out a lot easier. And then I went ahead and did the robots. The robots are a lot of fun to do, and I like drawing robots, but drawing one robot one time is easy. Matching them to each other and to the previous panels and different angles and all the details gets a little bit, I don't know if tedious is quite the right word, but painstaking. And here again, I have the Thug, and I redrew him. Maybe didn't need to as much as Boots, but I did. And then went ahead and inked him and put all the other elements back. And I often draw things in different layers and remove them for inking purposes. And here you can see I brought in reference for her hand communicator to make sure it was on model. And then I put her in looking at some stuff, and I put a little bit of shading in there, which I'll do more later.
Okay, so that's pretty much the real work I did on the horror, quote unquote, but not all the hours I put in. Because then what I started working on was planning a book, a preview book for Ape, which I mentioned, but it's going to be 5 pages, so I got to get those 5 pages lettered, shaded, and everything else, and that leads into what I end up working on the horror later in the week. So after the show, Monday, getting back to real life, I had to spend a lot of time just catching up on emails and stupid life stuff and do some house cleaning. Q it off work, and I worked on a new print. And then I also worked on the horror for an hour, inking on page 11. So then, and I filmed some toy shots, blah, 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 fluff, 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 fluff. I'm sorry I'm reading so much. Tuesday, registered for CampbellCon. I had said I wasn't going to do any more cons except for Ape that I was registered for, but CampbellCon is in November, and it's right next door, and it was super cheap for a table, so I was like, alright, I'll do this one. But that's the last one until the horror's done. That's the plan anyway. We're outside, and it's daylight! We still might have similar problems with the sun, though, as we had problems with the streetlights before. Regardless, it is Tuesday at the end of the day. Yeah, there we go. I substitute streetlight for sunlight. It is Tuesday at the end of the day. I'm feeling a little more positive. The show did not go well. Nothing terrible happened or anything. Just sales were not very good. And Sunday attendance was dismal. It was that thing I talked about before where there was just nobody walking by the table or the same few people. And I take some responsibility because maybe I should have had some new prints or been a little bit more, I don't know, attentive or whatever. But if people are walking by and not looking or buying, that's on me. If people aren't walking by, that's on the people who run the show or the, bad luck. Maybe it's Labor Day weekend. There's also another show, another big show less than an hour away on the same day. So these things all factor in. But at the end of the day, with all the sales Q and I made, we did not cover table. We certainly didn't cover table and parking, even though I found better parking. And that's a bummer. I haven't not covered table in quite a while. And, these tables are also more expensive, and partially because it's the brand name Wizard World, which I will say was run very well. It was very organized, super well run, but it wasn't as big and fantastic as I thought it would be. And other people reflected on the same, both vendors and attendees, that there'd be more that, I don't know, just be bigger in some way. Whereas Big Wow is the one by me normally that was bigger than Wizard World. Also, the tickets were more expensive because it was a 3-day show, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But Friday was not much of a day, and Sunday ended up being terrible too. Basically, Saturday was the only really good day. And I made like 90% of my sales Saturday. And so did Q. I think she made some more Friday, but... So, I was feeling pretty bummed. And Q and I was talking about it a lot. And she was saying, well, you got to get some new prints. And, I do make new prints, but I go through these phases where I'm like, okay, here's 10, here's 20. And then I don't make any for months. And then I'll make like 1 every now and then if a show's coming up. And that's where I've been. And it's partially because I get burned out. I did a lot of Godzilla prints, and I have people coming by asking me, oh, you have new Godzilla stuff? And it's like, no, man, I did like 20. I'm burnt out on doing Godzilla in general. And I'm also trying to focus on other things. I'm like trying to put all my energy into the horror. And as I've talked before, I feel like I do better when I'm not multitasking. And she understood all that, but at the end of the day, she's like, yeah, but people come back, you know, to your table. And that's true. I've gotten to the point now where people do know who I am and come back and they're like, oh, you're the Godzilla guy, or you're the guy that did the Green Power Ranger, or whatever, you know, oh, you did the Ninja Turtle, the more popular ones. And as I've said before, I don't particularly think it's me or my art that is bringing them back so much as these properties, but at the very least, I'm the one who's creating these property images with a skill level they enjoy or a style they enjoy. And they come back, and she's like, they're going to stop coming back. And it's like, yeah, and I guess I do, you know, I want people to be happy with me, but also, you know, I need the revenue. And I said, you know, I would like to get to the point where I am just, I'd like to get to the point where I'm just, you know, doing my comic. Like, once the horror's out and stuff, if I could phase out prints altogether, or just have prints of my own personal stuff, or a t-shirt of the horror, but that's it. And she's like, well, you know, great, but I don't know if that's realistic. And I'm like, yeah, you know, you might be right. And she's saying, you know, at least for now, you definitely need prints to make table. And even when you're doing the horror, why not have, you know, a big print of something to get people to come over and look and then go, oh, also, by the way, here's my comic, which made a lot of sense. And went around and around. And basically it was like, well, look, you know, she's saying, I'll work on some stuff too, and you work on some stuff, but like do prints, and we'll do it on like the weekend, so it's not taking away from your work week, which sounds like bad, but to me is good, because usually the weekend, you know, I'm hanging out with her, we're doing stuff, so if she's offering to like do that stuff together on the weekend, that does free up time that, you know, I would otherwise be just hanging out having fun, and as we all know, I need to have less fun. But so I did a print. It was like 3 or 4 hours. I did a 5x5. I have like the Monster series, Godzilla, and a couple Ultra Heroes, all 5x5s, and I figured that'd be an easier one than doing a big 11x17 color print. And so I did Bolton Sagine, which is an alien from Ultraman, and I'll go ahead and put it up right here. As of this recording, that print is not yet available. When it does become available, I'll put a link below. But I'm working on several, and I'm going to get them printed up all at once. But hey, there's a new print for the next show I'm doing at the very least, even if I do nothing else. Still working on the horror. Today was a good day. I picked up, I've done 5 hours so far, and I'll probably try to pick up some more later tonight. I am trying to finish up page 11. I have one panel left. And once I do, I'm going to start working on lettering and grayscale and get the first 5 pages done. And then try to do a mock-up cover. Maybe not the finished final cover for the real issue, but I'm going to make a little preview book. It'll be 5 pages, the first 5 pages of finished art with lettering, and a mock-up cover, and a little, you know, bio about who I am, what I'm doing, and where you can find my YouTube channel and stuff, and a coupon. There's an idea I stole from Scott Circland, a coupon for $1 off when the actual book comes out. And originally I was going to sell these, but then I figured I'm just going to print them up at like FedEx myself on like 8.5 by 11. They'll cost next to nothing, and I'm just going to give them away. If somebody buys a print, I'll stick it in the bag. If somebody shows interest, I'll give it to them. I'm not going to put them on the freebie table because I'd have to make thousands, but you know, I'll make a couple hundred, and the next couple shows I do, I'll give them out to anybody I talk to or has interest, as though it was a business card. And then hopefully that'll get people to look at my social media and kind of be aware of the project. And even more so, hopefully that'll get people to come look for the book in a month, 2 months, whatever, whenever the next show is that they see me at or know I'm going to be at. And I was saying, like, well, yeah, I'm losing $1 and this and that. And I wanted to charge $4 for the issue, because that's kind of normal retail on the stands right now. But realistically, I'm probably going to have to charge $5. And so Q was like, well, there you go. So the people that have it, you're going to be charging $4. And you might, I don't think I'll lose money. I think it's just like my profit margin, basically. I have to crunch the numbers. I'm not really sure. But the idea being that the people who have come to my table a few times and shown interest and are getting rewarded by getting a lower price just because they're following me in some way, shape, or form. But anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I gotta go for a walk, well, finish my walk. I kind of started it, then I started filming, and I'm milling around in the shady area. So I'm gonna go for now, and we'll talk again. This is Gazbot. This is Tuesday, and I'm walking. One other good thing that happened Sunday is I allowed myself to be a fan for a little bit and went to see Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, the original Green Power Ranger, to see if I could get a video of me and him morphing together, or saying, you know, we didn't actually transform. Shocking, I know. After I got Walter Jones, the original Black Ranger at Comic-Con, I figured now I have a collection of me and Power Rangers on video. It's an odd collection, but whatever. So I didn't buy a photo op or anything like that, and I just wanted the video, so I kind of went over and waited, and he ended up being late, and I was there for like a half hour, and he finally came, and he was like, sorry I'm late, everybody, blah, blah, blah. It was real pleasant. And I basically talked to his manager person. I was like, I want to get a video, and she's like, well, we're charging for autographs or photos. I'm like, I'm not really looking for either of those. I said, can I just pay for a photo and get a video? And she's like, yeah, that'll probably be okay. And I also wanted to give him a copy of my Green Ranger print. It was his birthday, and so I'm like, oh, okay, we'll do this, and, you know, hopefully he'll like it and allow me to have a video. So I gave it to him. He liked it. He said he was going to put it on his Instagram. I don't know if he has. It would be awesome if he did, because he has, like, millions of followers. So that would be fantastic for publicity for me. But I basically paid for a photo, but wanted a video. I said, could we do a video of Morphin? It's Morphin time. He said, yes. He's like, well, let's take a photo first, just to say I have that too. I'm like, okay. So I had the photo. Then I had the video. I gave him the print. He was super excited. He said, thank you very much. And I had my Morpher and my friend's Morpher for the photo. And he's like, oh, you want me to sign those? And I'm like, oh, I didn't pay for autographs. He's like, that's fine. Look, you drew this picture. I'll give you. And so he was super cool. And my friend who was online later went, and he paid for, I think, a picture and a print or something like that. And he had his Saba sword with him for the photo, and he signed that for free. And I've heard mixed things about this guy in terms of, is he actually nice or whatever. I've had 2 interactions with him. Both times he went above and beyond. My friend had an interaction, he went above and beyond. He might be fake, I don't know. He's a very good actor though, and he seems to give a crap about his fans and seems to go above and beyond. And so if that's not really what's in his heart, that's a shame, but he's still bringing happiness to a lot of people, so the net gain is good. And this was the same day I was doing kid sketches, which I forgot to mention. I signed up. They had Kids Day Sunday. They said, if you want to do something for Kids Day, sign up. We'll send people to your booth. So I was like, I'll do free head sketches for the kids, little quick ones on like 5x7 index cards. Cool. I think I did 25 of them, and I missed a bunch because I was away seeing Jason David Frank for a minute. Well, a minute being, you know, half hour to an hour. And not one person who got those bought a pin or a print or anything like that. One kid wanted to buy a sketch, and I'm like, oh, you know what, they're free today because you're a kid. And that happened a couple times where I kind of lost business, but I didn't want to penalize the people that were willing to pay. And the kid's like, oh, that's great. I think I did Wally. And he's like, let me tip you. I'm like, you don't have to tip me, man. It's all right. He's like, here, it's $2. I'm like, all right. So I took it, and then Q gave him a pin. So, you know, he got a pin out of it at least. But it was of dubious benefit to me. But I had started it and was feeling kind of bummed about it, because it wasn't really generating money, it was just making my hand hurt. And after seeing Jason David Frank, I got a little bit of the fan service spirit, and I'm like, all right, let me, you know, get back into this, and giving out free pins, and just, you know, kind of for nothing, you know. And I'm like, well, I brightened their day just like my day was brightened, and, you know, paid it backwards, as it were, or forwards, sideways. It's a little cheesy, but, you know, whatever. And it did make me think that next time I probably would do Kids Day, but I would do something where maybe I'd make up small prints and give those out as opposed to having to draw on the spot. Because also it was like, I basically had a line of people that I was drawing for, and I was missing out on having conversations with other people, or, you know, somebody might be looking at my print and normally be like, oh, do you have a question? But I couldn't do that. So I might do something like have a couple prints like Spider-Man, Batgirl, you know, Jake from Adventure Time, Godzilla, and then on the back have all my information or something like that, so that I could still give kids something, still get the traffic at my table, but not actually, you know, be having to create and be busy for nothing. So I'm sort of being charitable, but not fully. Well, I'm inside, man. Look at that soft lighting. Hey, do you want to come back to my place? Anyway, it is Wednesday morning. I did work on the horror more last night after my walk. I ended up getting about 6.5 hours total on the horror. Finished the inks for page 11. I'm going to go ahead and show you where I was before the beginning of this period, and then the final inks on page 11 here.
So this was the rough, and I had the rough lettering in it for the people I let read it before I made revisions. Started off doing the bottom panel of the close-up of the eyes. I don't know why, but I thought that'd be the easiest. Turned out not being super easy. Then I did this middle panel. You could see that actually was reasonably easy. This top panel, I did those 2 people. That was one day. Then the next day, I did the general and his second in command. And then the next day, I pretty much did everything. I finished that panel, did the other ones at the bottom. The bottom left panel, where they're all at the table, that took me hours. It took me longer than anything else.
Okay, so I'm about to start my work day. It's about 10. I eat breakfast, eaten breakfast and all that stuff. I just want to take a second to talk about momentum. Momentum is a funny thing, don't you think? I mean, there's the whole the physics sort of you know, a body in motion tends to stay in motion, blah, 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 blah. But on a more specific level to what we're doing, I find when I'm sitting around not getting a lot of work done, that continues. And it's hard to break that because even though it's negative momentum or zero momentum, it's just I'm used to being lazy and sitting around. So then it's hard to break that and get active, whether it's walking or exercising or socializing or working on my artwork or cleaning the house or whatever. And similarly, once I get into workflow and I'm going, it's easier to keep going. And that's true very much this last week and a half, whatever. I mean, I've had the Comic-Con, the Wizard World, and little client work and things like that, so I haven't been able to do as much as I did the previous week or so. I'm still doing good in general. I mean, I did 6.5 hours yesterday. But it's funny because I did like 6, 7, 8, 8, 8, and that was like my week. And then the next week, being this period I'm going through now, a couple days I did like an hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes, and it felt like nothing. It's like, oh man, yeah, it not only did it feel like it went by quick, and I'm like, oh, I felt lazy, and I felt bad for only putting in an hour, as previously I'd be like, I put in an hour. It also was like, man, I got like nothing done. I got half a panel done, whereas I was used to getting like almost a page done in a day. But also in projects, I find, at least for me, momentum is a big thing. I've talked before about how I don't like multitasking, and I'm not saying multitasking is necessarily bad for everybody, although I'm not. Yeah, maybe it is, but certainly for me, because like I didn't want to work on the print, as I said, got motivated enough to do the print. Then the next time I sat down to work, I was like, okay, I better work on the horror. But honestly, my head was like, oh, I could do another print, because I was in that zone now, and I had busted through that, and I was like, oh, I should bust out that print, because I know I want to do a few more before the next show now, because of, you know, my experience at the last show and my discussion with Q. You know, that's my intention, is to do a few more prints for the next show. And so I want to just keep going with that momentum, but I'm like, no, I need to work on the horror, so let me do that. So then yesterday I worked on the horror all day. But I need to finish up some Kid Switch pages, the inks on one, and then color both of them. So I'm like, I better do that today, being Wednesday. But I'm thinking, like, I wish I could just start the next horror page, you know? Similarly, I picked up 2 or 3 client jobs. Nothing I need to do today, but things that will need to be done in the next couple weeks. And I'm also thinking, oh, I got to do those. And I know I'm going to be working on Kid Switch, finish these pages, have to go on to do one of the client works, and be like, oh, I wish I could just keep going on Kid Switch. There does seem to be momentum there, both psychologically and well, I don't want to say physically, but more tangibly. Like, not just I'm in that mindset, but like, oh yeah, these are the brush thicknesses I'm using. This is the coloring style I'm using. Oh, these are the characters I'm working on. And you just get in a groove and a rhythm of that. Just like page 10 of a book is easier than page 1 because you've worked in this universe, you've worked in these characters. So too, if I do it 2 days in a row or 2 hours in a row, that second hour, that second day just feels more natural, more in the groove. And so if I had my druthers, I would just work on the hard till it was done. Then I'd work on Kid Switch till it's done. Then I'd work on prints till they were done. Then I'd work on client work till it's done. Then I'd start the cycle over again. But that's not the world we live in. That's not realistic. I'm going to go work on Kid Switch, and then maybe a little bit of horror towards the end of the day. So, Gazbot out for day Wednesday. Day Wednesday! Sometimes I come to Target to shop for toys or food. Other times I'm just farting around. Okay, talking about positivity, I talk a lot about negative stuff, and I mean, I try to be positive about other people's stuff, try to be positive about getting work done, but I'm very negative about enjoying the work, and this is a recurring theme, and it's true. I exaggerated a bit for comedic effect, but I do struggle with enjoying the process, as it were. And Q's giving me some crap about it, and other people have, you know, said, like, what the heck, and it's, I don't know, I mean, my hope is that it gets better over time. But I did take a moment to try to appreciate something I enjoy. And I was working on the last page of the horror, and a bunch of people sitting at a table, and it was, not, by the way, not the last page of the horror, the most recent page of the horror. And it was a perspective shot, and it was a table, and it was very tedious. And I find that what I don't like about drawing is usually one of two things. The tediousness of just, I know what to do and it just takes forever because there's 100 lines of perspective, or the unknown. I don't know how to draw this to make it right. I redraw the enemy 15 times, I redo the perspective 100 times, and so I get frustrated or bored. However, in there, sometimes I can find a little nugget where I actually enjoy myself. And I'm not talking about the zen of like, I forget I'm drawing and I kind of zone out. I can hit that and just sort of get through it, but it's not, you know, filling me with pleasure. But this was a little moment, and I kind of realized in the moment that I enjoyed it, and I grabbed onto it, and it was a stupid moment. I drew all these military officers around the table, And most of them had the same uniform. A few had slightly different uniforms, and I was making a point of not having them all stand like this. You know, one was sitting a little bit slouched, one was looking a little to the left, you know, one had a hand on the table, and then one in the back they had brought their hat, but didn't have it on. It was on the table. It was just a dumb little thing, but the hat on the table. And I was like, oh, that was a good idea. Because like I'm always, when I look at my old drawings, I would have a table that's like a square with nothing on it, and 4 people sitting rigid at chairs, and there's nothing in the room. And over time, I'm like, oh well, there should be, you know, a plate on the table. So then everybody has a plate in a line, and I'm like, well, these plates shouldn't exactly be even, and oh, they should be, you know. And I added more life things, you know, more props, but created in a way that looked realistic as opposed to, you know, they're placed there on a set. And then I've also started getting into, you know, making sure people are posed, and like they're just background characters, but I think, well, what are they thinking? Why are they here? What's their rank? And try to reflect that in their body language. And then again, it was just one of those things where some of the people had hats on, some didn't. And I'm like, well, what if somebody put their hat on the table? And it's a dumb thing, but I've never drawn somebody putting their hat on the table before. Now, I wasn't like, yay, a thing I've never drawn. That wasn't what excited me. I was just excited that, like, yeah, because I got in this person's head and he was slouching a little, and on the page he's about that big. He's one of like 9 people way in the background. Probably no one will ever see it, which is even more ridiculous. This is the thing I'm enjoying. But I was pretty happy that I was like, yeah, this guy, he's ready to be done. And he wore his hat, but he took it off, put it on the table, and it was, you know, at once a great set dressing and a good acting moment. And that's the thing, I realized that I really enjoy the acting. More than a big action punch, I like when people are arguing or whatever. Like a lot of my early comic sample pages that I did when I was like actively trying to get work at Marvel and stuff, I think I had like 6 pages 2 different times of like people at the diner talking, arguing, and then a superhero would show up, because like that's like what I like doing, you know. I'm like Kevin Smith, just clerks, just people talking behind counters. That's fun, right? That's what comics are for. But I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the acting I enjoy, and especially background characters, and like trying to make them not look generic. I was working on some Kid Switch pages, and I had to do like, you know, 50 kids coming out of school, well, maybe 20, and I made a point of like varying the genders and varying the ethnicities and varying the styles they were wearing, and have some looking at their phone and some talking and some looking mad, and like that's, I enjoy that. I enjoy the acting. So there's a positive thing I enjoy when I'm drawing. You heard it here first. Gazbot found a way to enjoy drawing, at least sometimes. So anyway, Wednesday, worked on some Kid Switch, and then this is when I started working on the Ape preview book. Well, it's not specifically for Ape, but I'm hoping to have it ready for Ape, which is October 1st, I think. The main thing I needed to do was the grays, which was a little bit of me just figuring out what grays I was using. And I think I have it figured out that it's going to be 3 tones of gray. In my mind, I'm creating a false analog, a false traditional, whereas if I had a piece of what was called Duoshade had chemical in it that you would use 2 different developers, and it would act like a zipatone in that it would have, and zipatone, if you don't know what that is, you would cut it out and put it on like a sticker. But the idea was, when printing processes were not as good, if you had a black and white comic, you couldn't use gray like in Photoshop. It would have to be little teeny dots of black or cross hatches of black, and you either did it manually, or you put a sticker on it that you cut out, or you used Duoshade and developed it. Duoshade gave you 2 different shades. A lot of old Ninja Turtle comics had this. That's mainly how I know about it. But you could use that and then also stick Zipatone on top. So my thought is, if I was doing this traditional, I bought a sheet of Duoshade, there's my 2 shades, and then maybe if I need a 3rd one, that's a little bit of Zipatone. I also allow myself to use white, because I could use white out, graphic white, or they also had halftone zip. So that is the limits I put on the grayscale, which I didn't have to do, but I did it to have a consistency of look. I feel it like kind of hit the look I wanted. It will keep the pages consistent throughout the book, and it actually makes my job a little easier by putting these restrictions on, which you know, when you're working with an editor or a timeline, you have to get it done. You just do. So sometimes putting restrictions on yourself can be helpful, and this is a restriction I placed on myself happily, and I think it was a smart thing to do. The thing that is not so good is that I needed to put the lettering in, and I go back and forth on whether or not I'm going to try to hire a letterer or get a friend to letter it or just do it myself. And I really didn't want to do it myself because I've never really lettered. I mean, I have lettered a couple comic strips, which were like super basic bubbles, and you know, and I wasn't thrilled with what I did, but it was passable, serviceable. But I wanted this to be a little bit more professional, a little bit more classy. And I went in and I used like an ellipse tool and a crappy font. And everybody hated the font I had used for like the temporary font, so I spent forever finding a font that was like decent. It's not even like my favorite, it's just the best one I found. And the last couple days I've spent time learning about fonts and not just fonts, but kerning and all the placement, and I had a hard time figuring out how to get the spacing default. Below I'm going to put a bunch of links. There are going to be links to places you can get free fonts. There's going to be links to how you could adjust spacing. There's going to be things about how you could make word balloons. I'm still terrible at it. It was like a crash course. I feel like all the rest of the hours I put in were learning about lettering, basically. And I hate it. And what I did is better than what I've done in the past, but it still looks kind of amateurish to me. So I'm going to do it for these 5 pages for the 8 book, but I might look into, if I can't get better, and it also takes me a really long time. Like making one balloon takes me like a few minutes, which is ridiculous. So if I can't get better / faster, I might have to look into either hiring someone or seeing if someone wants to partner up with me, or I don't know. I don't know how it works with letterers. Like, I don't really have the money to pay a letterer, but I don't want to take advantage of anyone either. So I don't know if, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that. But anyway, that's a lot of what I dealt with the horror this week, or this second week rather. Paragraph blah 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 blah. One person that gave me a lot of help, a lot of people, I put stuff up on Facebook groups and art groups, and a bunch of different people gave me advice, as well as the links I'm putting below. But Kevin Phillips on the Digital Comic Book Arts group specifically gave me a lot of good pointers, so shout out to him and thank you. So today is Friday, and today I finished up the colors on 2 kid switch pages, so I'm all caught up on that, although I think a check might be coming. The way that we do it is like he pays me and I do the next page, so I think, like I said, he's ramping up production, so I might be getting another check, maybe have another page next week. All the rest of the stuff I had to do, I caught up. I had to do a weird little avatar. Somebody had an avatar that was made for them years ago, and they only had the tiny version. They wanted to make it big, so I had to kind of recreate it. And I also have a coloring job for the Earthling again, not a page, but a pinup I need to do. That I have not yet done. And I got a commission, which I haven't got the deposit on yet, but it's like 99% going to happen, to do some Magneto, just straight up pinup work. So I kind of got through half of my client work this week. If I don't pick up any more, I should have a good week next week as far as getting stuff done on the horror. But either way, I think that's about it. Hopefully this wasn't too chaotic. Hopefully I wasn't looking down too much. I guess I should say the total hours. So it was for 12 days, I did 21 and a half hours, which if I break it down on the average is about an hour and 45 minutes a day, which used to be good, it's now terrible. That's the other thing is I do find that days I worked, I put in like 4, 6, whatever, and days like today I think I put in like 3 hours, and it feels like nothing. Like, not in the sense that this work is super easy now, but just like having done 6 and 8 hour days, it's like, wow, like, it just feels like I got nothing done. Like I haven't done a half-hour day in forever. It's like I've done days where I did nothing, like when I was at the Comic-Con and stuff, but like, it just, no, one day at the Comic-Con I did put in 30 minutes, and it was like, I just felt like, I just sat down for a minute and went, working on the horror, okay, never mind. I'm like, that's like the minimum, wow. So perspective does shift, and I feel like I have a lot of good momentum on the horror, been getting a lot of work done, and I've been doing other stuff too. I feel like I've been doing more in the horror and more positive forward motion than I've had almost since the entire project, with the exception of last week, but I feel like I'm carrying on from last week, and I feel like this is going to continue on. It's just I have other things happening too, so I can't devote quite as much time as I'd like, but I'm feeling good. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling like a butterfly. Imagine if butterflies were like diamond, or what am I even, stop. See, that's how I know it's time to be done. Bye!